Call the February 13th Athabasca County Council meeting to order. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. As is our normal custom, we'll go through the items that must be selected for discussion because of either incomplete or ambiguous recommendations, and then open the floor to additional other additions. First item I have is 7.1, 7.3, 7.7, 8.1, 8.2. I assume I'm going to say 10.1X and number 11.1. I'm assuming that Councilor Minns would like to add 10.1D, would also add 10.1E and 10.1J. Between Councilor and I, there would be an update on those committees. Councilor Anderson?
I think you'd like to add 5.3.
5.3. Other items?
7.1 on those.
7.1 is on the list. Councilor Cromwell,
Like to add 11.2, an emergent item,
can you tell us what that is?
section 17.1, personal privacy.
What does it relate to? Like, is it emergent?
I believe it is emergent.
Does it relate to the Aspen View letter?
It is the Aspen View letter.
Okay, there's nothing emergent about that letter. We all saw it. We all have a copy. There's nothing that's time bound in that. That doesn't meet the criteria. Councilor Holland?
I believe that we can take that to vote, whether or not we would like that considered
We don't take the
consideration
vote.
to be on it in according to.
Councilors have an obligation to uphold the bylaws, Councilor, and items that are urgent or emergent that cannot wait to be included. And there's no discussion about why that can't be.
I believe that in procedure, I would like to challenge that in procedure. It does
Okay,
mention that we can put that in up for consideration.
Okay, other items to add? Councilor Wallach? So the items to put to the agenda are 5.3, 7.1, 7.6, 7.7, 8.1, 8.2, 10.1D, 10.1E, 10.1J, 10.1X, 11.1, and on relating the item 11.2 proposal, can you explain why it's urgent, why it meets the criteria of urgent or emergent? Given there's no time constraints in that item.
I believe being that this come out, we need to get on top of it, and I fully stand by the fact that it should not be ignored and needs to be addressed.
Okay, so it's missed the time deadline. That item, will rule that is not an urgent item. On the question of the agenda, are there any further additions or deletions? Councilor Holland?
Thank you. I'd like to challenge your.
You can't
decision.
challenge the procedural bylaw.
The procedural bylaw says it's up for consideration. Consideration means a vote. So I believe that that is something that should be fair. And we should allow council to decide. And I'd also like to add 10.1G.
10.1G. Okay. Okay, so whenever the chair is of the opinion of the motion is contrary to the rules and privileges of the council, they shall apprise the members without proposing the question and cite the rule of authority. Should any issue pertain to procedure or process arise that is not covered by the bylaw, it should be decided by a majority of council. This is clearly an item that is doesn't meet the requirements, and I will not be proposing it. As it relates to the agenda, we have a number of items added. Do you require me to go through them again? Do you want me to go through them? That's the
Yes,
question.
please. And I'd also like
The
to
items-
use the challenge that has been given
So-
to the chair.
I've already explained why that doesn't apply. The items for discussion today are 5.3, 7.1, 7.6, 7.7, 8.1, 8.2, 10.1D, E, G, J, X, and 11.1. On the question, who wants to move the agenda? Councillor Kapitanek has moved the approval of the agenda as amended. On the question of the adoption of the agenda, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The count is 6 and 3, and the agenda is adopted. First item of business is 5.3. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to direct,
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to direct administration to revise the policy to only reference the governing aspects of an emergency alert system and remove the
I'm gonna
procedural elements.
Stop you there, Councillor. We often work on precedent and process. And in the past, we've held that when a committee makes a motion coming to council, we have an obligation to first consider the recommendation from the committee that was the majority of council. Is someone willing to move the recommended motion first? And then you can speak against it if you'd like. Councillor Cromwell.
So moved.
Councillor Cromwell has moved that policy 6815, the app policy, be adopted as presented. We'll open the floor for discussion. Councillor Cromwell, do you want to speak to it first as well?
I will
You'll have the
speak
closing.
final.
You have both.
I'll wait for the closing remark.
Okay, motion, comments? Given that there's none, I have some notes. Councillor Chamzak, you go
Well,
ahead.
when we look at the Voyant Alert, the only thing that I really see is with the title, the Emergent Reliable app. I mean, it is also used for more of a communication base as well. And I don't know if an amendment on maybe a title change or something would be appropriate if I had to pick something.
Councillor Holland?
Thank you. I agree. I noticed the agenda mentions emergency alert reliable app, but the policy just mentions emergency reliable app. It's not, it's missing the alert portion of that. And I also wasn't really sure what the reliable in the title meant, what that refers to. I did look up Voyant Alert and it mentions it's a multi-purpose communication service app. So I'm wondering about the only leaving it as an emergency when we do mention if a bridge is out or, you know, the road is, there's construction or, you know, smoke is creating problems or something like that. So I also have a concern, and thank you for bringing that up, that the title doesn't seem to quite match what we're doing with this app.
So when I looked at this, and I know this has been on the agenda for review by us for almost a year worth of time. I think it's important that we take time to get it right. And over the course of that time and the large gaps between when we first saw it and later saw it, I think my thinking has changed a little bit. And so I think we should take time to get it right and work to continue to improve the quality of our policies in general. And with some, you know, learning that's happened more recently, I would urge you to reject the policy and instead return it to administration for review in conjunction with the fire chief and the DEM to rewrite it as more of a governing document. When I read this and, you know, when I was reading it in preparation for the meeting today, it seems to me to have too many procedural elements in it. And so I would prefer to see admin take another go at it with the employees and staff the CIO has now to rewrite it as a document of governing principles, strip it of the procedural element. And as much as admin needs a procedure recorded, I don't think it should be up to us to get into the nitty gritty of that. The other item that's in there is I'm not even convinced that our policy should make specific reference to a third-party software. I think that, you know, while I know I supported sending this to council with further reflection, I think it does require more work. So I'm going to vote to reject it. Because I think, again, we should set the high level principles of what it should do. The mechanics of whether it's Voyant Alert or pick another name, alertable. I think we have to keep that out of policy and really say, this, our policy is that we have an app that can connect with people on an urgent basis and outline some of the conditions which we might do that. But getting into the names of the people who have to have it and the CAO has to have a backup, and I think that's a process that doesn't belong in policy, in my opinion. Councillor Anderson, you had your hand up.
Thank you.
And
When I reviewed this again, and I know we've seen it at committee of the whole, and I supported sending it to council then too. But when I reviewed it again, it seemed to have a lot of procedural elements included. And while those procedural elements maybe should have been included more in the regional emergency management plan, I don't think they belong in the policy here. So just upon further review, I thought maybe this isn't quite the policy that we need. It's too much procedure, not just governing.
Councillors Kapitanek, Wallach, Mins, Grilic. No comments? Do you want to, just if you pop your mic on so that Camille can hear you, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it can't hurt to review it. If that many people have concerns with it, then it would be appropriate to review it.
I think we're getting better over time, right? Like you watch the evolution of what we do. What we did day one, what we do in day 700 and what? Okay. Councillor Mins, floor is yours.
Excuse me, I guess this policy was at the policy review, right? And we all looked at it and everything like that, so now it's coming forward to be adopted, and all of a sudden we're sending it back to tear it apart again. And I don't know why we keep going back and forth. Like it seems like, and then there is some policies we want to talk about and bang, we can't. All of a sudden, so it's like, it kind of drives me crazy, but I agree, and I guess a little point to ponder for administration is from now on, take a policy and totally tear it down and bring it back to us, please, because that's all we keep doing is policy comes forward and we say nope. All of a sudden it's not good enough and bang, send it back. So take every procedure that you can out of every policy and let's go. Thank you.
Councillor Cromwell, final word is to you.
I very much agree with Councillor Mims. Great words coming from across the table. And I do agree with the Reeve that the term Voyant Alert being written right into this could be a bit of an issue. That organization could go bankrupt. There could be a massive change. And by making that more generic as to a app, a process, and taking the name out of there might be a good amendment. So I would support bringing this back one more time for review with the good staff the county has and take it from there. But really, we've been dealing with this for far too long.
On the question of the adoption of the motion that policy 6815 be adopted as presented, all those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
The count is 1 and 8, and the motion is defeated. Next item is 7.1. This item is, looks like the reconsideration of a unanimous decision made in October of 2023.
Actually.
And after
Chair.
having discussed this at least 7 public meetings.
Chair, if I may
May I
interrupt,
finish?
it's not a reconsideration request.
There can be no, the substance of the motion ultimately leads to reopening of a debate and contradicts the approved policy. While the proposal mentions 5.1C, it fails to mention 6.4.I, which is the section dealing with the review of policy. So it really, the substance of this is to reconsider. You cannot do indirectly what you can't do directly. Like this is really, we're looking to. So if we think that it's not a reconsideration, then approve it.
It's definitely a point of information when you refer to 6.4. Please state what that says.
It's in the policy. You can look at it in your book right there.
Let's go there,
So this is,
because this is not a reconsideration at all. This is following a
So,
policy which the council.
council members need to accept that in a democratic environment, all decisions don't go your way. And regardless of the strengths of one's arguments, it can and often happens that the votes on a different view prevail. This is the basis of any democratic institution. Positions are debated, information is cited, and arguments are heard, and a decision is made, which often results in some who are prevailing and some who may need to re-examine their arguments and determine what might have been lacking. In this case, this came forward unanimously, so decisions made in this way should be respected and accepted. A decision legitimately made is really one that is expected to be taken as a decision of council and not one that's open to continuous discussion and debate. That is not the essence of democracy, and it's the role of the chair to preserve order and decorum and to continue forward. The motion contradicts policy. It amounts to reopening the policy. And I think we need to remember it passed unanimously after 7 open meetings. Over many months, councillors have a duty to read and understand the policy when you're approving it, not 3 months later.
And I will challenge the chair's decision once again, as this is not a reopening of a policy. It's actually following the policy as the policy is written. So if the chair would like to
Policy-
not follow the policy, then we're going
Councillor
into
Holland, you're out
another
of order.
council code
The
conflict.
the policy was just approved.
Yes, so we should
you're
go
not-
forward in following the policy. It's
Okay,
exactly what
so
this is.
Councillor
referring-
Holland thinks that we should, is challenging the chair's decision that this is a reconsideration of the policy. Those who would view this as not a reconsideration, vote aye now. Okay. And those considering it a reconsideration?
Aye.
So the Councillor Holland's challenge is successful and we will not consider it a reconsideration, even though. So then we'll open the floor to discussion. Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Who asked for this to come forward?
I asked for it to come forward because it's a reconsideration.
And it is not a reconsideration. As
So-
a matter of fact, I will carry forward with this then. And as the RFD clearly states, we have a responsibility to this policy that was adopted. The responsibility now is to follow one of the points in this particular policy, which is 5.1C, which states council shall, not may, we must engage the services of a third party to review this policy in accordance with the terms of reference that are specified by elected officials. Therefore, as far as I can see, the recommendation is to direct administration to obtain 3 recommendations and estimates for third-party review options regarding policy 2009 5.1C and present them at the committee of the whole meeting, February 20th, 2024.
Okay, other comments? Councillor Anderson?
As it was noted by the chair, this policy was reviewed at 6 committee of the whole meetings and 1 council meeting in open session. And in the August 10th committee of the whole meeting, interim CAO Vincent had actually included in the draft policy which municipalities were used for comparisons to when creating this policy and what the target was in comparison to their compensation. And therefore, I believe that a thorough review has already been done and a third-party review would not be required until midterm of the next council.
Other comments? Councillor Minns, Councillor Cromwell, Councillor Gerlach, Capitanek, you have the floor.
Speak to that. Yeah, I understand it as it can be reviewed and should be reviewed by each term. And personally, I look at all of the examples that have been brought forward by our past interim CEO, and I believe our current CEO brought us some more examples of neighboring municipalities that we're very much in line with and or in the middle. And it's not that I don't think things should be reviewed. I think this is a great thing to have written in, but when it hasn't even gone really into effect, like we've just started using it, it's pilot project, paying someone to do that review when they really have nothing to review yet doesn't make sense. And that's why I would see that as a like per term review. You're going to pay a lot of money to get someone to tell you if you're in line with your neighbors. I feel we already know we are right now. If that changes in 2 to 4 years and we need to pay someone to tell us where to be, if we're still at this table, the next council might have to do that. But it just seems a little bit jumping the gun to me. And I know that these things are valuable and worth the money, but I'm not willing to spend the money yet. We haven't even really seen how this policy is going to play out.
Councillor Cromwell, the floor is yours.
I would actually like to put our CAO on the spot and get his professional opinion as someone who has dealt with issues like this in the past. What is your recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't here for most of the discussion on remuneration for council. That happened long before I got here. I was really here for the last 5% of the discussion. I'm more familiar with a system where council does use either a third-party consultant, or I'm even familiar with systems where they employ a steering committee of residents, believe it or not. In some places, I think even one of our neighbors does. So it's because remuneration for councillors can be a highly political item. Let's not kid ourselves. However, our job is to follow the policy that council adopts. I'm familiar with all the systems. You can set your own, you can use an outside consultant. It's not for me to judge what's fair. That's for someone else to judge.
Thank you, if I may.
Yeah, the floor is yours.
Maybe I can rephrase what I meant, CAO. Under the recommendation on the RFD to direct administration to obtain 3 recommendations and estimates for third party. Hearing that, but hearing the argument some of my peers had, do you believe that the information provided by the previous interim CAO met that qualification or that?
Well, to be fair,
requirement?
the policy wasn't in place at that time, so you
Okay.
can't ask him to meet a
Then-
qualification of something that didn't exist, like.
Then
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to comment on it.
Please.
Actually, I have no opinion on that. That's up to council. But I would just point out that should council vote on this and if it were to be approved, February 20th is completely impossible. No one's going to. It would have to be a different time frame. That's all. If council wished to go this route, it's just not going to happen in 1 week.
you took the part B away from me right there.
In terms of those who haven't spoken, Councillor Chamzik, Mins. Councillor Wallach. No, shaking your head. Councillor Gerlich. The voice of reason.
It's a very big move. And it just seems like it's a bigger move than, seems like it should be done maybe in a little smaller increments. And if we look at comparables, we compare ourselves to other jurisdictions for remuneration. But then on the other hand, should we then compare ourselves as far as taxation is concerned, that we're so far behind on our pipe and power and our M&E? We're 4 or 5 mills behind our neighbors. Should we just jump right up to the same level as they're at? There, we're inching our way up and trying to get them closer. So we should use the same process kind of on on similar matters.
Other comments? Councillor Mins, your hand is going down.
I guess I'll chime in. Even before I know I voted on it to pass this policy. And, but prior to that, I asked council to send this back to get better clarification on it and that, and I'm still standing by my thoughts of this is to send it back and for the review and see how it works out. Just because it is a very contentious issue, I want to make sure that it's done right, that I have no problem with saying, you know what, let's hold back and send it back, so. Even though I voted on it when it first came up, or the last time it came up, I voted on it, and I still have the thoughts in my mind that it should go back for a review just to cross our T's and dot our I's before we implement it, but that's my thoughts.
Councillor Chebzik? Councillor Holland, you get the last word, so you don't get to jump in a second time. I think council examined this, and I think that this really serves nothing more than creating additional administrative work and disruption and disharmony at our table. Even if there is a review of information and approved by, we reviewed information and approved it barely 3 months ago. So we've done this work. We now have a policy in place that is forward-looking, not a backwards-looking policy, that puts in place a future review date at the midpoint of the term, which we are past. So this is nothing more than an attempt to reverse a decision that was unanimously approved. What can be the result of a review? Except to reconsider the policy, which, as you know, requires a 2/3 vote. For me, this is a waste of time and money. It's a waste of energy. What's your point?
Point of
What
order.
point of the bylaw am I off of?
My point of order here is your accusations are
sorry.
uncalled for and not necessary. I take
Cal-
offense.
The point is not well taken. Points of order about departure from the bylaw, and to say that it is a waste of time and money to engage this without knowing whether we'd reopen the debate. We have more important big picture things to work on. And after months of work, it does not seem to be a good use of resources to keep churning on an internal issue. What actually is the expected outcome? We do the review and then what? Can we achieve a 2/3 vote to reopen the policy? I don't know, because we won't test it. I think we should reject this and get on with the more important things that we need to do. As we all know, there's no shortage of those. Now, is there anybody who hasn't spoken that would like a final word? Councillors Chebzik or Wallach? Councillor Holland, you get the final word before the question.
Thank you. Once again, I find that your argument is
I'm
very
sorry, we are
offensive.
going to not make personal attacks at the.
I find it very offensive. There is no attempt to reverse a decision. As a matter of fact, we have a policy that's been adopted. Yes, I made a mistake. When I first looked at that in October and this unanimous decision, more information was given to us, which of course opened up a whole new look through another lens. We have a very big responsibility to our public. We have a responsibility in our council code of conduct to make sure that we adhere to policies, procedures, and bylaws, and we shall uphold these policies, procedures, and bylaws. We adopted this policy. It now specifies that we need to follow it. And when we follow it, we follow all points. We don't pick and choose. So there is no reason to be fearful of a reverse of a decision, because the policy also mentions that if we receive a review, it won't go into effect until the following term. So there is really no concern of any reversal. And I really do take offense to that, Reeve Hall. The other point as well,
We are not.
the
speaking
other
directly
point
to
as well that I would like
Councillor
to
Holland.
make.
For clarity, you don't get to make personal jabs. Now you can
Excuse
finish
me.
your comments and then we're going to
Excuse me.
vote.
I took offense to what you
Councillor
said.
Holland, are you finished speaking?
No, I'm not
Okay, then
finished
please stay
speaking.
on point and on motion.
The bullying, it needs to stop in this room, and I would appreciate it if it did. 13.1, remuneration and expenses. In our council code of conduct, members are stewards of public resources and shall avoid waste, abuse, and extravagance in the use of public resources. As far as I'm concerned, if you're not worried about that around this table, then a review and following of the policy is what is required. I highly recommend that everyone have a really good look and make sure that we are following and adhering to what we agreed to. 5.1C specifies a third-party review is required. Third party does not mean some administrative reports that have come forward with some comparisons from our CAOs. It comes from a third party.
As a point of
Therefore,
order,
I ask
as a
now-
point of order, the review is required at the midpoint of the term so that we're clear.
As
Please
again,
correct.
the policy is very specific, and I would like to ask through the chair to the CAO what time frame would be required, because when I remembered speaking to, you had mentioned it wouldn't be too much of a problem, but I'm seeing now that that is. So would it the last council meeting of the month be sufficient, or what time frame would be required so that we can maybe look at an amendment at the motion from the 20th?
Mr. Chairman, it's not a huge exercise, but I am not a consultant. I don't know how fast they can respond to us. So some of them need 3 weeks. Some of them, they don't drop what, they can't drop what they're doing. They're already working for other clients. So I would say in the order of 6 weeks would be a fair time frame to allow proper response by a consultant.
So in an amendment, would it be better to say, rather than present them at the committee of the whole February 20th, to present when
At the next committee of the whole?
when the CAO is ready to present?
Yeah, as soon as I've received proposals, exactly. Something to that effect is as soon as possible, but we can't control the consultants and how fast they can respond. That's my only caveat.
Okay. So do we put that amendment on the table, or has the motion not been read by the chair, therefore?
No, the motion was read, so we can, I mean, if there's unanimous consent to amending it to, would you be happy with the next committee of the whole, or the first committee of the whole that's available?
Mr. Chair, the first committee of the whole is about 4 weeks. No, let's
No,
see.
it'll be
We
longer.
have,
Because we,
Uh,
one's
that
next
would
week and
be
then the next
April.
one is April.
I think that's plenty of time, Mr. Chair. I don't see why I couldn't get responses if the motion were passed.
Is there any objection to just amending the councilor's motion to changing the language to the next committee of the whole after at the next committee of the whole after February 21st? Or after February 29th, just something passed after April 1st? Councillor Holland, is that suitable to you?
That's fine, thank you.
Seeing no objections to that, we'll consider that to be an amendment that's approved with unanimous consent. Ms. Blair? Okay, proposed by Councillor Holland. Okay, Councillor Holland, the floor remains yours.
Pardon me, thank you. I think we've made it very clear that I think the importance of following policies and following our council code of conduct is extremely important.
On the question of the adoption of the motion to direct admin to obtain 3 recommendations and estimates for third-party review options regarding policy 209, 5C, and present them at the next committee of the whole after February 21st. All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
The count is 5 and 4 and the motion is adopted. Item. Okay,
I'd like to make a motion, but I'd like to ask a question of the CAO before I do so. Is that right?
okay, sure.
Through the chair. When we enlist a third party to do a review, do we need to give them like a specific outline of what we want? Like if we want extra things reviewed? Can we do that?
Mr. Chairman, that's exactly right. Yeah, so I'd have to develop terms of reference. And I'd probably base it on what other communities have done, very general. And by proxy of that motion, you've kind of left the terms of reference up to me unless council wants to take that back.
I would like to make a motion then.
May I ask for actually a point of order here?
What's the
as well
point
as a
that's-
Point of information.
Point, point of order?
The terms of reference is mentioned in the policy that needs to be determined by council, which is why it's already, that policy statement is already in. So 5.1C mentions the third party to review this policy in accordance
So I
with the
think, I
terms
don't
of
think that's a
reference.
point of order because we're not departing from the procedural bylaw, but that would be an argument against what might get proposed.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna put this out there because my brain's turning. And I just think in fairness of the information that we have from the past and then what's going to be going into the future, as I said, we don't have anything to really go on right now. If we are going to have this review, I would like to make a motion that we add in that the reviewers take a past look at the last 2 years and the actual money spent on conferences versus counselors that attended. Because I would like to see in the budget an actual breakdown of if people have registered for hotels and conferences and then not used them and they were spent and that was not reported to the public. I would like to see that black
Would
and
you-
white as part of that review.
So do you think that that's really part of developing the terms of reference and would the procedurally the maybe would
I
it
think
be
it's
to
transparency. If this is all about
in the
that,
terms of
that's
reference?
important,
I'm
yeah.
just wondering if it would be better to, that sounds like a component of terms of reference. So would there be any wisdom in pushing to the COW meeting on the 20th of February, a discussion about the terms of reference? Which is a more appropriate place for a discussion, and then people can have a conversation about developing them. Because I think to engage in right now, a discussion on what terms do we develop? No,
They
but
should be on there.
we haven't had the opportunity to think that through and prepare as a group. Putting that to the February 20th to develop the terms of reference would be, as Councillor Holland points out, the policy requires council to develop the terms of reference.
Can we put it off to another meeting? I will be absent on the 20th due to the fact that I'm registered for a conference that I am actually attending.
Well, you can propose we develop the terms of reference whenever you want. Yes.
Okay, a future cow, not the 20th. Is that an amendment?
So you're proposing a motion to
Adding to the review,
who's-
a review of
well,
all.
to have council develop terms of reference at a committee of the whole
Yeah,
meeting
sure.
after February 20th.
Sure. I want it all reviewed in the terms of reference. Make it one big review.
Okay, Councillor Kapitanek has made a motion that the council refer a discussion topic, refer a discussion topic to develop terms of reference for the review to a committee of the whole meeting after February 20th. So that we refer a discussion of council to develop the terms of reference at a committee of the whole meeting after February 20th. Is there any comments on that? Councillor Anderson, Councillor Holland, second.
Thank you. Just logistically speaking, administration, if we're not having this discussion about the terms of reference until what would probably be the April meeting, administration will not have the proposals for
Put it
the
over.
analysis until probably the June committee of the whole meeting, so. But because the motion, I believe, stated after February 21st, just to make sure that everybody's aware that we can't expect administration to have the proposals at the same meeting that we're determining the terms of reference. And if we can't establish terms of reference in one meeting, if we have to forward it to the next committee of the whole meeting, it'll
We need to do it
push the
right.
whole process.
Do it right.
Councillor Holland, you're on deck.
Thank you. I was going to mention the exact same thing as Councillor Anderson had mentioned. I also am struggling a little bit here because we're back and forth as to if someone's here or not here, whether or not we have a meeting. And it's usually depending how it rolls, whether or not that happens. So it's basically being told that if you can't be here, you can't be here. And then it's unfortunate.
I make the
However,
motion.
Great,
I'd
that's
like to
fine.
be here to talk about it.
Well,
So you
unfortunately.
can propose to amend the date.
Can I finish speaking, please, without interruption? Thank you. I understand the motion was made. However, again, you could be sick that day as well. So whether or not the motion is, whether or not the motion has been made by a particular individual who cannot be here, as far as I'm concerned, we do not need to worry about that because we don't do it in any, for everybody. It doesn't happen equally across the board that goes on. There's also an insinuation here that there has been money spent on counselors that have not attended.
So we're. in
If
terms of
that is
speaking to the-
information that
Counselor
someone
Holland, I'm
is-
going to stop you. We're speaking to the motion, please.
Yes, I'm speaking to the motion of these terms
The
of reference.
motion was to develop terms of reference at a committee of the whole meeting after February 20th.
Thank you. And once again, as it was mentioned, there is concern on those terms of reference on what should be looked into. If that information is a concern, it can be asked for and provided to you without a term of reference. Yes, it can.
I want
That
it
is
for the public.
information that belongs to the
Everybody
county.
sees it.
You have an ability to ask for it and it be presented to you.
Okay.
So as far as I'm concerned, the terms of reference
That's
need to be
immediate.
established to be able to go forward with the previous motion that was made. Therefore, there are examples of terms of reference from several municipalities. I have provided some here in the RFD that are very excellent as far as I'm concerned, that would apply to what we need and what we're looking for. Therefore, I believe that February 20th should be the date that we discuss this and would like to put that amendment on the table.
Counselor Holland has moved to amend the motion to discuss terms of reference on February 20th. Further discussion. CAO, is it
Chairman,
possible
just
to
for
get that on the,
Just for clarification, the wording of the motion, is it council's intent that they would work on this
well, I think,
or would you prefer administration to at least present a straw model that you could start with
Counselor
and pair
Traficant, is
apart?
that the intent of your motion? They present a,
I think that would make the most sense, but I would like I said, a full inclusive
Okay.
review of,
so if,
Where the money
if,
goes.
you're looking for admin to provide a draft if your intent was that they provide a draft. Like, is the idea that we will start from zero with a blank sheet of paper and talk about what terms of reference we want? Or is it that we will have admin say, here's the best practice, let's start from this and talk about it? And I assume it's the latter.
Mr. Chairman, it would be normal for us to do
Yeah.
95% of the
I
of
like
the
that.
drafting and let council worry about the main aspects that you want included, but it's our job to draft language.
Do you have time to do it before next week's?
It
meeting?
may be a handout item. It may not make the agenda, but we could certainly have something as a handout item or emailed to council before the meeting. But we should have time to do that. But it may not be in the actual cow agenda package. So we'll see what we can do.
Councilor Cromwell, do you have any comments, or Councilor Gerlich? Decline. Councilor Gerlich? I mean, honestly, the original motion was made with a date that suited the mover. As the mover, I think there is no urgency to doing this. It's been pointed out as part of our discussion that none of this takes effect till later, so there is no giant rush and no think about it in advance. So I don't think the amendment is necessary, but I would support the original motion to have admin develop some terms of reference for council to engage a discussion at a committee of the whole meeting in the future. On the main, is there anybody who hasn't spoken that wants to speak? Councillor Chamzik or Mins or Wallach? Mins?
I do like the idea of administration bringing us kind of like a basis point to go off of and that. This is a remuneration policy. This is not to, I don't think, to draw out somebody for spending something that I don't know where that actually fits into this policy. I think.
what's it under conferences?
Well, you don't have the floor.
Well, whether you went to the conference or not.
I think it's important for the public to know.
Counselor Kapitanek, you're,
It's under the policy.
Okay.
I want the policy reviewed, the whole thing.
you get the final word on the main motion. Counselor Mittens, the floor remains yours. Sorry for.
Yeah, I'm just lost on that point where all of a sudden we're talking about a remuneration. We're not talking about. There's gotta be another way of finding out whether you were there or not. I don't know if it's actually. The way I'm thinking, it doesn't even actually should be in this policy. That's another. That's another.
I can't do.
That's another policy as far as I care. It's, or if you're looking for numbers or something like that, ask. I just don't understand why. What some policies we can have so convoluted and the next policy can be just straightforward. I think we got a policy of a remuneration here. And keep it simple. Like, I don't know, that's the way I look. But I'm all for getting this terms of reference done, getting this policy figured out, and because we have some expense accounts that are sitting on the table right now, we're ready to go. So I don't know, let's get this figured out.
On the question of the adoption of the amendment to change the date to February 20th, all those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Counselor Chamzak, how did you vote? Affirmative, so the count is 5 and 4. The date is changed to February 20th. Develop terms of reference at a committee of the whole on February 20th. Counselor Kapitanek, as the mover of the main motion, you have final word.
Thank you. The reason that I made this motion is because I believe if we're going to open up and review this policy, that is in effect, no matter when we review it or not, it continues as it is. I believe then we should be thorough and looking at the entire thing. And I would like to see a review of how it was written for our conference budgets. I would like to see a check and balance for those who register for expensive events and don't attend, how it is going to be calculated and costed, and that the public know that their money was used for good or not. And I think that if we're going to open this policy, that's my number one thing I want to see transparent is our attendance.
Point of order that
There's no- there's- I'm
That
sorry,
we
Vicky?
attend.
Okay, do you want to state your point, Councillor
And
Hall?
any, yes, I
Yeah,
would
I
like
mean,
to
so remember,
staff.
just as a clarification though, before you start, points of order are a departure from the procedural
That's
bylaw.
what I want to see.
If you don't like what she's saying, that's not a departure.
Oh, that seems to
Okay.
happen quite a bit around this table.
Okay, okay, on the question of the adoption of the motion to
And the
refer
interruptions.
a discussion on to develop the terms of reference at a committee of the whole meeting on February 20th, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's just count.
Opposed?
So
So
that's the
we're
motion.
referring this to discussion of the motion is to refer a discussion to develop the terms of reference at committee of the whole on February 20th. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Gerlach, you need to vote. Okay, so 9 and 0.
Open it up.
Item number
Take your time, you guys.
7.6 is healthcare consultation.
Reeve, I'm requesting a 5-minute break for the table.
We normally do it at 10:30. If you need to leave, you can leave. Item 7.6 is healthcare consultations. This is on the agenda because obviously, having written it, I know that there's no clear recommendation. Because of that, and because of the timing that this couldn't show up at a committee, the whole, I think it's appropriate we open the floor for discussion on this one before a motion. A couple of bits of information I can share with you along the way. The Northeast Mayors and Reeves, which is the North Alberta Alliance for Growth and Opportunity, that group feels strongly that as a region, we should be advocating for a separate health region in the Northeast. Urban solutions for rural problems are no longer acceptable. And so there's a lot of sentiment that we have decision makers that aren't really in touch with the region making decisions for us. I have received just before the meeting, the authorization to release a letter that was given to me in confidence to council, which I'll do later. But it's from one of the speaking on behalf of the physicians in our community. And it talks about the exponential increases in stress and workload that have related to the Connect Care rollout. Connect Care doesn't work the same in rural areas as it does in urban areas. I'm not sure that I'm the right person to try to explain it, but often in the city, I think clinics can be AHS affiliated, so they have a direct attachment to Connect Care. In rural areas, the clinics are owned by the physicians, you typically, or often at least, and they have their own electronic records at the clinic, or electronic medical records. There's an interfacing software called CIIC PAR, and somehow that is supposed to connect the clinics to Netcare, which AHS Connect Care is supposed to talk with, and the data is supposed to flow back and forth, but it doesn't flow seamlessly, and it creates a load of work. Some of the concern, I mean, clearly new systems create new work and they're slower, but the concerns are around dramatically increased workload for rural physicians with countless redundancies. The Connect Care does not work fluently with non-AHS family medical clinics, and the feeling is it creates an unfair administrative burden on our physicians. And so I think, for me, the message out of this is we need to be clear that we have our physicians back and that we want to advocate for them. But the workload on our local physicians is incredibly high right now because of the rolling closures in Smoky Lake, Boyle, Lac La Biche, and there's some AHS protocol changes that allow nurses at those hospitals to phone the doctor on call and ask them for assistance, help, diagnosis, things that creates has the potential to create an undue level of risk for them. So that's kind of the summary of that. And for me, I mean, I think it's prudent for us not to rush to formalize a position of our council, because again, we haven't had a lot of time to discuss it. But so I actually think we shouldn't take a firm position today, but that we should go to the meeting and listen and hear what is being said. But I also really believe that this needs to be a choice of council rather than the default. So it's here so that we can choose. Do we want to, not take a firm position, or do we want to jump onto something? And with that, I'd like to open the floor to any discussion that happens.
Just first question,
Councillor Curley.
in-person meeting, but I haven't been able to find what the venue is or where it's at.
It's February 15th, pre-registration is required, and I think
Senior Center?
I'd have to double check, Councillor. It's in that microscopic website.
Oh,
I mean, if you click on
Sorry,
it,
you emailed it to us.
I don't know if I emailed it or Councillor Wallach emailed it or. But I mean, it wouldn't be a hard thing to get an email of that out to everybody. So it's in Athabasca. Further questions?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, I'll get you both and Councillor Captain to shut off the mics. Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As I was looking into this, the main focus was primary care, acute care, continuing care, and mental health and addiction. So my question would be maybe through the chair to the CAO, if we know if FCSS is going to be taking part in this particular engagement, as I believe that they are the best to bring forward a lot of these issues on the county's behalf.
Mr. Chair, I would have to consult and report back.
Thank you.
Councillor Anderson, Kapitanek, Wallach, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I am not in favor of council determining our position at this time. But I do encourage everybody to attend the session, and been trying to encourage many community members to attend as well. And I look forward to being there and hearing what the intentions are from the GOA, as well as hopefully some concerns from some of our local healthcare workers when they hear what the intentions are. And then after that, maybe we can touch base with our local community and create a position if some advocacy work is required. But at this point, I just don't feel like I have enough of the details about what the plan is or what the concerns are related to that plan to really form a position to advocate one way or the other. So.
Councillor Mintz? Oh, Councillor Wallach.
Yeah, I think the intent of these town halls are just for gathering information and to see what's working. So I think if we just remain neutral and listen to what people on the ground are actually saying that are in healthcare, I know there's going to be a lot of them that are attending this meeting. So I think if we just go listen, see what they have to say, and then come back and revisit it after.
Any further comments, or would someone like to move a motion to accept for information? Councillor Cromwell has moved. Any further discussion, Councillor Holland?
Thank you. Can we include in that motion that admin promote the event through the county social media channels and invite FCSS to also attend?
Is there any, I haven't read the motion, so any objection, floor to that? So the motion in front of us is to direct admin to promote the event through social media channels and to invite FCSS and further to accept for information. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of the motion as stated, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Count is 9-0. Motion is adopted. I don't think we can get through the next one in 5 minutes. Want a 10-minute break? Reconvening at 35 minutes after.
Sure.
next item of business is 7.7, Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors. The we've been again, the opportunity has been open to meet with the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors. The office has asked if A, if we want to meet, and B, if we want, if we do, we need to have a couple of topics. The recommendation, of course, is vague, so we should have a conversation around the things we may want to talk about. Councillor Cromwell, before we make a motion, let's have a second for everybody to put their opinion in. And do you want to share some thoughts of what you think we should talk about?
Actually, I'm just looking for clarification to what I remember. Did we not speak about minister meetings and decide not to do any during this RMA session? Was that not something we talked about
No,
around this room?
I think we talked about only going if we had something we wanted to talk about. It's my memory.
I recall it as we wouldn't go for the quick 15-minute meeting, but because we're so close to Edmonton, we try and book.
The
not
CIO's
during
provided a
RMA.
different perspective, and so this is here to discuss, and we can, we can say no to this meeting.
I'm
But,
just looking for
um,
clarification.
The CIO, do you want to share your thoughts on the ministerial meetings that occur at RMA?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I mean, if we can get meetings at other times because we are close to Edmonton, absolutely. If we can secure a meeting at RMA, if they have a spot, I would take that one too. Just the perspective of that I expressed to the Reeve is sometimes it's also just about relationship building. It's not about advocating for something or always showing up with cap in hand. Sometimes it's just relationship building and sometimes to express gratitude. We get, I can speak from the administrative perspective. We get great service from some of these departments. Like they are fantastic to work with. And Councillor Minns and I were just talking about one. So sometimes it's nice for the ministers to hear that their departments are valued. They do great work and we'd like to build a relationship. That's all.
Councillor Cromwell, the floor remains yours.
I'm just looking up a number here right now. I'll ask to refer for a moment, please.
Councillor Minns?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I remember many years ago, council's always saying if you get a chance to have a meeting with the ministers at the RMA, you jump on it. You exactly what our CEO is saying. Like you said, even to say thank you for something which I would like to put on the agenda is there's a little bit more information regarding the proposed water line to go out west. That actually the province is actually working with us instead of leaving us in the dark. So it's a great time to be able to go to them and say, hey, yeah, this is working awesome. So, you know, if this is the new way you guys are going, it's gonna work. So yeah. But any of the I remember when that was being discussed, possibly not going to any meetings, I sat back and I thought, you know, maybe we should be, even just to go and say hi. So I think it's a good idea.
Councillor Cromwell?
I would be in agreement with that, going in not to go, hi, we need help, but to talk about what has been working, a little bit of relationship building with the minister, and then take the opportunity, as we are so close to Edmonton, to book a meeting at a later date when we're not number 12 out of 82 with their handout during the RMA, and have a proper sit-down discussion with the minister would be far more conductive to a well use of time. But on that note, if we were to make a list of things that we want to talk about, I would like to talk about the new Highway 686 being built between Fort McMurray and Red Earth Creek, as that will be a huge deduction in the amount of traffic on Highway 63, which fits very much into the first bullet point on page 67 of your agenda. And with that, the province's announcement of government-owned rest stops along the highway which will take away a lot of the business from small communities such as Grassland and Wandering River, which rely on highway traffic to survive, and what kind of detriment this is going to be for our rural communities. That is definitely something we should have a good bit of speaking about.
Counselor Holland, I thought I saw you waving. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. I'm liking the list, of course, of, definitely that we need to express our gratitude and appreciation for the relationships that we've built with the government and the work that's happening there. But I realize it's only 15 minutes. I'm very much in favor as well of creating another meeting, being that we are close in proximity. However, I do think that many of these items are also very important to highlight, to maybe either, this is the things that we would like to discuss at a future meeting or whichever, but Highway 813 for me is huge. The STIP grant application, of course, for Alpac Bridge, huge, and so is Highway 63 rescue. As much as the items that you've brought forward, I would like to see a bit more information on that, because I'm also, I would like to see a bit more information on that, just because opening the north is not a bad thing. So I just kind of like to see where we're at, right, on that one, but also in it, who's all going to be in attendance. This is one I would definitely like to attend as well when this meeting is up and coming.
Counselor Chams.
I totally agree. Through the chair, Councillor Cromwell has any information about especially the government rest stops, if you wouldn't mind just forwarding that along to council.
Absolutely.
Counselor Anderson.
Thank you. I know at the upcoming committee of the whole meeting, there is a discussion slated for different briefing documents that we would like administration to prepare in advance of the RMA convention for us. So maybe some of these are ideas that we should discuss next week. And then once we have a little bit more information on the specific topics, we can decide, but maybe just submit these two of these as discussion items to the minister now and accept the meeting invite. And then we can discuss what other meetings we would want to schedule at that time once we discuss the topics at hand.
So I'm looking at these, I see, and I know I suggested them when we, this came up with the CAO, the STIP grant, while it's, critical in our region in terms of the economic impact of that bridge. I'm kind of mixed mind on it. If we're trying to keep it to 3 topics, that one to me would probably be the lowest priority, only because of the 3 that are on the sheet. Only because we won't have an answer on STIP yet. So I don't know if it needs to, we don't know that they've said yes or said no. So it might be a very brief reminder or comment that this is a really critical project and we've got it in the queue and we're hoping that your department looks favorably on it. But there's not a lot to say about it because I'm assuming there'll be money coming for it when the time comes. Highway 63, we've talked about so many times at this table. I think, there's no doubt about how critical that service is to the region. And the funding arrangement is one of the high priority pressing issues, I believe, for our council that we actually should be spending time focusing on. And while I think the comments about 686 and the rest stops are important, I don't think we've talked about them enough to bring them up at a meeting so close in time. And I would love to see, agenda items at committee of the whole where we could actually talk about those things as a group. And so that we're all well informed and then we can speak knowledgeably to them because I'm sure they have a big impact. The Highway 813 though, for me, the Martin Hills and the oil projects that are going on there may be one of the greatest economic opportunities of our lifetime for this region in terms of new opportunities. And focusing on bringing that traffic into our county so that the service businesses that are going to service that industry are located here and in this region. A lot of the oil is still being trucked out. I think there's for me that's one that we've kind of been maybe a little quieter on, and I think we speaking to it would be important. So if I were my top 3 would be the Highway 63 Rescue, 813, and the water line. I really like the idea of going in and saying, we appreciate how your department has worked with the county. And, you know, in an era, it's timely because of the forecast drought in the south. And the others are all things that are important and ongoing, but they're also things that are ongoing, and there'll be more opportunities to speak to them. Councillor Gerlich, you look like you're eager to chime in, or Councillor. Okay, okay, sorry. So Councillor Chamzak, Councillor Wallach, and then we'll come back to Councillor Gerlich.
I just wanted to make sure with, through the chair to Councillor Anderson, I heard that correctly, the briefing documents up how? This sounds really loud
Yes,
today.
there'll be briefing. There's a discussion on briefing documents
Okay,
coming up at
perfect.
committee of the whole for what council would like to see.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wallach, floor is yours.
Thanks. Are we able to set up a meeting with the parliamentary secretary for economic development, MLA Shane Getson?
I see no reason why we can't ask CAO.
We can certainly ask.
He just spoke at the last Alberta Hub meeting and is very engaged with all of this, all the corridors and stuff that are opening up. So I think to bring attention to the 813 and Martin Hills and what's happening there, I think would be beneficial.
It may also, Penny Yao, who's the parliamentary secretary for Northern Rural Economic Development, may be a good choice too. Those might be ones we should be asking for at the cow. Baking onto that, but the chair's probably making a note that they'll come up. Is there, Councillor Gerlich, I'd cut you off. Did you want to say something on the microphone? So that, because Councillor,
You said that I looked like I had something to say, and I said, looks can be deceiving. So I really didn't have anything to add.
what's generally, so there's a lot of support at the table for the 813 project, the Highway 13. What do we, would those Waterline 813 and 813? Would there be anybody that thinks those shouldn't be the ones we at least initially send in? We can maybe refine that discussion next week. Councillor Holland, that meets your needs. On the right side. Seeing heads nod. Is there someone willing to make a motion to direct admin to? Okay, so Councillor Minns is going to move that we direct admin to ask for a meeting with the Minister of Transportation, Economic Corridors. The discussion topics would be the water line, extension to the west, Highway 63 rescue grant and contract, and Highway 813. And then before RMA, we will obviously also collectively have to maybe discuss those as a group in a little bit more detail. Okay, does everybody understand the motion? CAO.
Mr. Chairman, that was the second part was during RMA or at any time.
Council? This one was during RMA, but I mean, what's your advice, CIO? I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to me.
Or we could ask for RMA. If they say no, then we'd like a time not at RMA.
RMA or any time that's convenient to the minister. Is that agreeable, Councillor Minns? Okay, on the question of the adoption of the motion to direct RMA to seek a meeting with the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors at RMA or any agreeable time to the minister, with the topics being Highway 63 rescue grant and contract, Highway 813, and the water line to the west. All those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? The count is 9-0 and the motion is adopted. We are on item number 8.1. Just as a reference regarding 7.6, the session for the healthcare consultation is now full, but there is a waiting list. So if you still want to go, you can put your name on the waiting list. 8.1 is council correspondence. I added this to the list because there's one item, and it's a letter that we received from our neighbors. And in reading that, the sentiments in there, I thought made a lot of sense, but I wondered about council's appetite to consider this as a resolution we should consider advocating through Pembina and RMA. Counselor, and someone want to make a motion? Counselor Anderson?
Yeah, make a motion to direct administration to draft a resolution related to increase, advocacy for increasing the volunteer firefighter tax credit from $3,000 to $10,000 to be reviewed at the April committee of the whole meeting.
So the motion is to direct admin to draft a resolution regarding advocacy to increase the volunteer tax credit from 3 million to, 3,000 to 10,000 for review at the April committee of the whole meeting. Any further discussion? Counselor Holland, the floor is yours.
Just curious why we would be taking the letter back to committee of the whole rather than just directing administration to go ahead and request, very similar to what the Athabasca, town of Athabasca did. So I'm curious why we would.
It's because the motion is to draft a resolution to go to Pembina and
I'm
RMA.
sorry, I
not
missed
on-
that. It's very, like I say, that's,
It's allowed.
that fan is very annoying. Thank you.
Yep,
Oh,
sorry.
and
I wasn't loud enough maybe when I repeated it, but it's a resolution for RMA.
thank you. No, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate also just a shout out to the town of Athabasca for their letter and jumping on this advocacy. I think it's extremely important. So thanks to them.
Okay. Is there any further comments on the question of the adoption of the motion to direct admin to draft a resolution regarding advocacy to increase the volunteer tax credit from 3,000 to 10,000 and presented to council at the April committee of the whole? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Count is 9-0 and the motion is adopted. Calendars are next. It's item 8.1. I have a note on mine that says CAO. Do you have any items regarding strat plan you want to discuss?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm about to engage the services of a consulting service that'll help us with governance refresher. As you know, council passed a resolution for us to organize a 3-community governance refresher with the village and town. They confirmed they are interested, so I would ask council to see if they can figure out a date or two that we could flip to them and see if we can make one work. That would be an all day session. So, and secondly, same thing, we would follow up with strat planning, just council, just our council, not the other communities, of course. So a full day at least. So if you could look into your calendars, a little ways into the future, of course, it's not going to happen overnight, but, and see if we can narrow down some dates and then flip them back to our consultant. To see if that works as well. So I'd ask you to try to find 2 of each. Two for each of those events.
2 dates for each in the April time range?
April would kind of be great for the governance refresher. And if the strat planning had to wait till May, then that's great too. March is a very busy month and we're kind of booked up already.
Does everybody have access to their calendar, or do you want us to just send you a couple of dates and you'll sort out?
Yes, Mr. Chair, unless we can do it here, you know, what we could do is, I don't know if we've used Doodle to get dates before, but it's a tool that's really easy to use. We could probably put together something, send it out to council and see what works for you. Is that fair?
Councillor Chancer.
So far, I mean, it's still pretty early. I mean, without everybody's committees being in, just proposing the 9th, 10th and the 23rd and 24th, for a couple idea dates. April. Oh, right. I wrote that Monday. Okay, so maybe the 10th and 11th.
Would it be more appropriate, Reeve, to go with what the CAO said and put out a doodle calendar? And that way we have time to look at all of our other calendars we may not have put into this calendar, and then can make a more informed decision than trying to book a month or two further ahead than we're looking at currently.
I think it's okay though to give some general ideas, like first week of the month from a council perspective is usually pretty open. So that one would have lots of potential. First week of April, as much as 10th would, there's other conflicts on the 10th. But so I think so as much I agree with, I think, Councillor Cromwell's idea, we should float it through, but I think to give you some ideas, the 1st through the 5th, the 11th, the 12th of April. And potentially, what about the 30th or the 1st of April 30th, May 1st? Okay, so the 12th is already not working, so May 1st, okay, so, and these again, they don't have to be 2 days together, they can be 1 day space, 1 day, so potentially April 30th is a that's a few to start, and then other
I guess just regarding
yeah.
that, the doodle pool, it'll be like at a end at a certain time, because we also have to take into account the town and the village, right?
Correct. Mr. Chairman, what I was hoping for was I could at least get a couple of choices from our council and then
Right.
flip it over and maybe we'll get one that works.
But it ultimately, we're doing this I'm going to speak against that. So we're doing this for our benefit with an invite to them if it works. Like, I think the priority is our own needs, and if we can accommodate, great, but personally not keen to dance around 100 dates to try to accommodate the schedules of
Yeah.
our neighbors, because it's much harder on their, like, this is for our benefit, and if they can fit, you're welcome to come, but this is the.
Yeah.
Now, let's go around the table in terms of adding to the agenda, starting. Councillor Chapzik.
The only thing that I seen that the ASB meeting on February 26th is canceled.
ASB on the 26th is canceled, okay. Councillor Holland, do you have anything to add?
Thank you. The Black History event in Amber Valley was changed from February 10th, so it's now February 25th, 1 to 5, and March 1st. Athabasca Landing Trail Steering Committee, and that's being hosted at Sturgeon County.
Can you repeat the Black History, please?
Yep, the Black History event, Amber Valley, 1 to 5, February 25th.
And the other one you said was the Landing Trail Steering Committee, and it was on.
And that's on March 1st, Sturgeon County.
Councillor Minns.
February 15th, there's a Athabasca Watershed Council Zoom meeting, Teams meeting, or whatever you want to call it. So just heads up.
That's it. Councillor Cromwell,
I don't think I have anything.
Councillor Gerlich. They already have, they're done, okay. Any in March you want to hop on? Okay. Councillor Kapitanek.
March 25th, Community Futures in Westlock was moved due to RMA, so that's kind of them.
Okay.
Most of their board members are attending. I think that's all I have for a
Okay.
change.
Councillor Anderson, nothing. Councillor Wallach.
Healthcare retention meeting on February 26th. And Alberta Hub meeting on March 26th.
Okay. Alberta Hub on March 26th, and healthcare retention on February 26th. Councillor Chamzik, your hand's up again.
I just have a question. Counselor Carmel, I'm not sure if you got my email or are you available March 4th?
Is it something that,
Yes, it relates to the calendar. We had to move the 18th of the county library to March 4th because it's during our RMA.
Sorry, it's just working in May.
okay, so,
March 4th, the Monday, can do that.
Okay.
so we're canceling the county library on the 18th and moving it to March 4th?
Correct.
Everybody got that? Councillor Holland?
On February 28th, there's the fire and drought in Grand Prairie. Is there quite a few people that will be attending that from this council? Two? Okay, so February 28th, we should put that on our calendar then as something that's happening for the fire and drought seminar, I guess it is, seminar? Workshop? Fire and drought workshop, Grand Prairie.
It's not the same one that's happening here. It's, I think they're related, but they're different.
Yeah. They're related, but a little bit more on the fire end. The workshop that's coming here is mainly all about the drought. So
I was just wondering if administration would mind registering me for that workshop.
Yep.
Thank you.
The only one I would add is AB Munis in the conference. I'm going to attend the AB Munis Leaders Summit. There's some conversations around the drought and the planning that the province is doing. So that's on March 14th. And I'll be down for that. Would be appropriate to take a motion to approve to adopt the calendars as amended. Councillor Gerlich, do you want to add something? You're going to move the motion. Okay, Councillor Gerlich has made a motion to adopt the calendars as amended. All those in favor? And opposed?
Aye.
Count is 9-0, and that motion is adopted. 10.1B, Councillor Mins.
promise won't be long with these like normal. Alice meeting was held February 7th. At the county, Westlock County office. And it was one of those meetings where a lot of governance and terms of reference and parameters looking at, we didn't really talk about any projects. That'll be on April 3rd, I think is the date for the next, April 3rd. Here in Athabasca. We'll discuss that with administration later, but so yeah, there was just a lot on terms of reference and annual payments review. We're gonna look at possibly boosting them a bit, just due to the fact of everybody, a lot of Alice committees throughout Alberta has started to boost their payments for acreages, amount of acreages that we take up. One thing about the payments, a lot of people forget. It's classified as an acreage payment, but it's actually a payment for maintaining the project. So if you have a shelter belt that loses a whole bunch of trees, you actually have to replace those trees. You don't get any extra money, or you don't get extra trees to replace them. You actually have to replace them with your own money. So fences break, moose or elk jump through your fence. That's where the classified as acreage payments goes to, is actual acreage maintenance. So, we talked a lot about that and about actually increasing some of those fees, but the other thing, summer tour, we're looking at doing a summer tour with the pack. This would be our first summer tour to go around and look at some of the projects in that regionally. If we have a meeting, we might go that way and look at a couple there, but we're just gonna do it with the pack this first time, see how it goes. And then if the summer tour goes very well, then we'll start adding in if for other people. So that's mainly about it. A lot of just governance stuff that we went over and discussed one project that was brought to the coordinators thoughts about maybe taking over a quarter of LPAC trees. And it was like, it was huge. It was a huge thing to look at. We had a very good discussion over that. And I think we kind of said, no, we weren't going to start doing that. It's too big. There's a new conservation monies out there from the federal government, and Alice has been asked to look after it in a way to promote it, and it's huge. It's on big monies, like in the $100,000 end of payments and stuff like that. So there's it's called RELP, and it's under, there's going to be 4 people that if a project comes into Alice and they say, okay, this is too huge, but go to RELP, they'll send it to, there's 4 people that are set up to look after these projects. So it's not put right onto the coordinator itself, because it's huge. There's lots of money in there. So anybody wanting to do fence grazing and stuff like that can jump on this, where there's no acre payment though for it. It's just huge amount of money going out there. So there'll be some other information being given out on that. And then, yeah, that's pretty well it for the meeting. Next meeting's April 3rd, like I said here. So looking forward to that. That's where we'll be looking at projects for this year.
So the next item we have is Water Commission, the highlights that I'll bring up, and Councilor Minns, you fill in the blanks as you see fit. Overall utilization in 2023 was about 95% of budget. The commission continues to work on the asset management and governance review project. The timing for that is sometime this month. The draft of the final report is expected, and ultimately a lot of it is really those big things. We talked also about an MCCAC grant potential to have the commission work with the county to improve the utility utilization in county buildings. A couple of the buildings, when you compare the utility rates, the difference is astronomical, and so that program has the potential at least to provide some funding to improve the function of those buildings. Councilor Minns, you want to add anything?
I guess there was the governance grant is it's moving forward. They are looking at possibly, putting in the ideas of taking over Athabasca County's water distribution end, which would be great. Which I'm looking very forward to that part of it coming out for sure. Another one was the 2024 business plan. That's a great read. That's to myself, I figured that would be a great read. I actually have that in the next, I missed it this time, putting that in, but I have it for the next county council agenda. I think it's good to look over it. Water North Coalition meeting, May 1st here in Athabasca. We're going to tag team with the commission, the county and town, that bringing people in regarding Water North. That's the northern part of the province where come in and talk about anything to do with water. So and I guess, yeah, next meeting's March 5th. Everything's moving along very well. 10.1G.
Thank you.
Councilor Hall.
Thank you. February 2nd, 2024, we had a special meeting held in Athabasca, both in person and via Zoom, with the CAOs and the ALTS members from Sturgeon County, Athabasca, Gibbons, Westlock County, and Athabasca County, plus representatives from the Trail Board of Edmonton and the River Valley Alliance. The agenda consisted of ALT history, a brief history, which was presented by Linda Watson-Strong with Alberta TrailNet. The purpose of the special meeting being the MOU with shareholders, who the shareholders are, how the MOU will address maintenance and funding, what the opportunities are for tourism, grants, economic benefits, for example, Mud, Sweat, Gears and Edmonton Bike Tour, film industry, business opportunities along the trail, building community, etc. What the budget is, and currently and potentially, is there potential for a Part 9 corporation? There was an appointment of the chair to that subcommittee, which was me. The appointment of the recording secretary, which was Councillor Edwards. Conversation surrounded, again, around MOU of the trail, and which, as needs to be stressed, is under development. Possible updates to the 2010 master plan to reflect current status. The ALT route challenges such as easements, budget implications, and potential of liability concerns and how to offset those. Official agreements, of course, are always top of the agenda there. The master plan has been the guiding document for all efforts in the development of the trail, and we are reminded, of course, we had financial aid with creating that master plan when it was in its production phase. The municipalities are, of course, working towards, other municipalities as well are looking towards easements, applying for grants. Alberta TrailNet is also applying for grants, as they are the granting body for funds for the TCT, which is Trans-Canada Trail. There's been over $5 million raised so far, which is just phenomenal for an intermunicipal trail. We're also looking at intermunicipal agreements, the historic economic corridor agreements, of course, with trail operators, the MRM habitat, private landowners, survey plans. It's just a whole pile of information that's being discussed. The website for Athabasca Atlantic Trail is under redevelopment. The CAOs of Athabasca, Sturgeon County, Westlock, Gibbons were able to bring their thoughts and concerns forward before, unfortunately, we experienced the internet outage in town, which shut down quite a bit of our meeting. And unfortunately, CEO Beck probably got left in the dark wondering what the hell just happened there. So he didn't get a chance to speak, but the importance, of course, of the intermunicipal trail system and municipalities continuing to collaborate during and after development, with the next meeting being March 1st with Sturgeon County, as we all know the urgency of the importance of these agreements.
Athabasca Regional Waste, Councillor Mintz, you want to lead this one?
I can start. It's
Good things are happening. Take over.
yeah. It was a good meeting. Had it on when was it? February 5th. Here in Athabasca. We went through a lot of the financials all good and everything. We're going to be we're doing digging another phase. I think it's the third phase or cell in the regional up there at Lawrence Lake. We're going to be using quite a bit of reserves this year, but that's what we're put in for reserves, right? We'll rebuild them. So that was awarded. We awarded a contract there for 1.2 million. With engineering and consultants, you're going to be looking at 1.6.
And interestingly, it was significantly less than originally budgeted.
Yeah, so that worked out very well. There's not a lot of incidentals when you're digging a hole. You know, it's especially when you have soil tests and all this other stuff. So, and I don't know what else are we doing there. It's we talked about the long-term planning of the transfer stations again, and had a great discussion on that, and how and got some numbers and that, and how much it's costing per ton to move waste from one transfer station to the town, or move it right out to the regional, and it it opens up your eyes on how much it's costing and everything costs money. As soon as you bring in trucking, it costs money. So trying to come up with plans on maybe how to change doing so much trucking. But
The other, you know, in the long-term view, there's a discussion around what resources do we have and how do we effectively utilize them and what opportunities exist. And so there is the beginnings of the exploration of both what happens after this cell is finished at Lawrence Lake and what do we, you know, continue to expand on land we have there, or do we focus our efforts in other land the commission has? And also, are there opportunities regarding the some industrial waste that could be sited on the ground that's allocated for cells? I can't remember their letters, D and E, I think, or
yeah,
but the long-term some future stuff to see
TD&E.
what that would look like.
Yeah, and then other than that, it was a great meeting.
Thank you. 10.1,
Do these cells require a liner?
the future ones will.
Which ones will?
Yeah.
And then how many cells are left that, like, what is the projected? Are there quite a few cells left? Is it long term or? Is
I
it-
feel like there's about 100 years.
Oh,
Yeah, we're looking at like if we keep going the way we are, we got 100 to 120 years before we fill it up.
well, we can deal with it when it's done then.
That's one I think it's safe to defer.
Yeah. You know, there was discussion about waste for energy, you know, and stuff like that, like expanding, going into possibly doing something else with our waste instead of burying it. Let's start.
I
making
think
it
would be
work.
an interesting challenge, and this is for the board to work through, but you know, to set to say, what if we tried to take an approach where we're never going to bury another bag of garbage again after we get this last cell done? That gives you at least a decade to work to that, and it may be something, you know, that is not quite achievable, but if you set the target high, maybe there's a solution that's more sensible, because again, our transportation is a huge piece of moving refuse.
Yeah, well, even to go back into it with the Eco Mister, where we evaporate the water and that instead of hauling it, there's some huge savings there. That Eco Mister didn't fire up until I think we said what, June or July
Yeah, something.
of last year, and virtually if we can get going in April, like this
When it was
year,
hot and dry.
yeah, and we won't be hauling anything out of there. It's other than the odd load of real stuff to go to the downhole.
Yeah, it'll be
resource,
heavily
but-
concentrated leachate that moves
Yeah.
out of there instead of, so
Yeah.
there's and it's 2 or 3 year payback, I think, on that
Yeah.
device.
Yeah.
So, and it's amazing.
That was a very good buy. Very good.
Notwithstanding that they were broken into and had all the copper wire chopped off.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, we expect that to be repaired by middle of March. Northeast Alliance for Growth and Opportunity, which is in Northeast Mares and Reeves. There's a meeting on in Murnum. That subsequent to the meeting, there was a really interesting tour of their school and some of the wood shop stuff there. They've got kids working in the shop with power tools as young as grade 4. They're solar powered golf carts. They're working on a tiny home. They're doing lots of interesting things to engage their kids, and it relates a little bit to the demographic and trying to find ways to keep kids in school longer, because they found that by the time they hit, there's a piece of their population there that once they hit that 15, 16, they were leaving school, and so this was to try to engage them a little longer. Key items that I would highlight from that discussion: the working on a terms of reference. Once that's approved, I'll bring it back for you to see, but it really just outlines kind of the guiding principles for that group, because they do charge a membership fee and will collect funds, and it again will document sort of the purpose of the group, which is generally to advocate for issues that are regional in nature and to avoid issues which are single or a few municipality concerns. If it's a local concern, you do it on your own. If it's something that affects a big region, and we supported this for the last couple of years. One of the big discussions was around Highway 28, which again doesn't affect us directly because it's not in the county, but certainly our county is served by industry off of Highway 28. And the expectation, they're looking to see substantial commitments in the 2026 capital budget, and my understanding on those, because of the timing, they're kind of a rolling multi-year budget. The 2026 is really the year that's being planned for now, that they should see substantial capital commitments to that project. The other item of significance is the healthcare and the advocacy generally. The intent is to build out some documents that will come back to everybody's individual council, and then we can do collectively an inventory of what we have in our region, what we do well, what we are close to being able to do as to the capacity of our facilities. And then what are the shortfalls in the region as it relates to health? Is it personnel? Is it services? Are there other needs? So that as the lobbying and the advocacy to the provincial government goes, there's a consistent message from the Northeast. And I mean, overall, there's sort of a feeling that that when you look around, given the economic engine that exists in this part of the province, that they want a louder voice, or at least a voice at the table. So that'll be coming back, and at that point we'll be able to reach out in our communities here and gather information about what's in place, and to be able to provide good information to the government about the status of where things are at. One of the I can't remember, the mayor of somewhere was talking about a meeting they had with the premier, and they explained a couple of the things that occur in the region as it relates to healthcare, the long drive times, and she was reported to have been surprised and not aware of the distances that people in our region travel for healthcare, and also some of the other bizarre things that happen that would defy what we might call common sense, where you have to go left when the closer service is available right, but it's in a different some artificial line is preventing that. There was a little bit of talk again about LGFF, and one, I think it's Mayor McPhee of Vegreville has proposed the idea and suggests that we should consider this through RMA and AB Munis. LGFF and MSI was all cut given the ballooning provincial debt. And so the suggestion is that as the debt is paid, the interest savings should get dumped back into the base funding as a way to kind of compromise with the government to try to grow that base. Because I think AB Munis, both, when you hear them talk, they'll say the LGFF fund is about $1 billion short. And then this would be a way to, when you save a penny, it can come back in. All right. That's the report I can provide on that meeting. Next on our list is a motion to accept the reports for information. Councillor Chamzik has moved. All those in favor? On the adoption of that motion, it's carried. Councillor Wallach, your hand went up, I think.
Yeah,
Aye, thank you. It is 11:25. It would be in order to take a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Mins, Cromwell, you come out. On the question of the adoption of the motion to enter closed session, all those in favor? The motion is adopted.